Hey guys, it's Natter, and I'm here to give you 5 tips specifically for the push map type. So let's get down into it. The first tip I want to talk about is who moves cart. How many people do you want on cart? When do you move the cart? This is something I think a lot of people struggle with, and they don't fully understand it. First, the cart moves fastest with one person. Second, the cart doesn't heal. So you don't necessarily want many people on the cart. It doesn't heal anybody, and only needs one person to be moved. Just something to keep in mind. In a very general sense, you have 2 situations. A fight happening, and there's like fights over. So a fight's over and a fight's happening. Now if a fight's happening, you shouldn't even really care about the cart. There's one niche situation that maybe we'll talk about a little bit later, but you shouldn't care about the cart. Focus on winning the fight. That's what matters the most. When the fight is over, then it's important to obviously move the cart. Move the cart, get some progress so you can try and win the map. Makes sense. But what's even more important is looking to actually try and set up properly for the next fight. So if you're trying to do this, who should move the cart? Well, the answer is you normally want mobile people to move the carts, because when they're mobile, they could just move the cart and then just jump or blink or maybe punch in to the engagement zone. So, big hint, as I've already given, Winston, Doomfist, Tracer are great heroes to move the cart. The other reason why we don't want non-mobile people to move the cart is because we want our supports and DPS to normally set up and take the map. Particularly when I say set up to take the map, I mean set up to take lanes. So, for instance, on a map like this, I would want my supports to play maybe like somewhere over here, and then maybe a DPS play over here, and then I want my tank to push the cart so that maybe now we can engage somewhere in this area right over here. Hopefully this makes sense. Now for the second thing I want to talk about how to get value out of a lost fight. A lot of people just say, oh, the fight's lost, and they just like run away, or they just die, or you know, they just don't know what to do. But I'm gonna give you a few tips here on how to actually get value. So the first thing I want to do is when you know you're going to lose a fight, you're down, maybe like, you know, it's a 5v5 now, and let's say the enemy team is sort of crushing you, they're pushing really hard, all of a sudden from 5v5 it turns into maybe a 5v3, and you're like, maybe still winnable, but then it comes to 5v2 and you're like, okay, fight's lost. Don't just give up. One thing I want you to look to do, I want you to look to trade and try and kill the enemy supports, or particularly the main healer, the healer that's doing the most amount of healing. Maybe Bat, might be Ana, might be Moira. Whatever it is, I want you to kill that person, and I'll talk about why in a second. Or maybe the main damage dealer. Maybe they have a Reaper. Maybe they have a Junkrat. Maybe they have a Soldier. Whatever's going to do the most damage, kill that person. These are both squishies, so they're easy to kill, 200 HP normally. So you'll be able to get it with maybe 1 person or 2 people. 3 heal, probably a bit easier. But why does this matter? Well, you've lost a fight, and you know the cart's going to get pushed. But this next fight, because the enemy team is down to their main heals or their main damage, if they take the fight, you're going to have a massive advantage. First of all, it's going to be a 5v4 setting where you have heals and they don't, or you have damage and they don't. So you'll look to push this immediately and you'll just win. If an enemy team is smart, what they'll end up doing though is they'll just back up and they'll let you push the cart for free. So this is one way of sort of turning a fight. Another tip that is critical, and it brings back the niche point I mentioned at tip number 1, is what you want to look to do is when the fight's over, look to push the cart to your side. If the enemy team is trying to push the cart over here, start pushing the cart further away. This way, now when the fight's over, the enemy team's gonna have to push the cart back, and that buys you more time and they get less progress. I hope this makes sense. The third tip I want to give you is understanding what good kill boxes are and having a basic understanding of where you want to engage and when to take fights. And this is sort of the third and the fourth tip. They sort of go together. Basically, the way you sort of want to think about this is, again, think about, don't worry about touching the cart. You know, people are always thinking, oh, I need to touch the point. Not a big issue. It's better to look to set up with better positions and maybe even set up surprise attacks to get value. So let's say, for instance, maybe the enemy team is coming through here and you want to set up to like engage over here. So to do this, maybe what you do is you put your, let's say your Winston is, let's say, over here looking to engage, your Tracer's over here, your Soldier's sort of chilling over here, your Ana, your Lucio, Ana's here. Your Lucio can like move around and whatnot. And now you can engage. Your setup, this is where you want to engage, you can hit. It's called a kill box. I'm not going to go too much in the definition, but that's an engagement zone. Now let's say you want to be a bit more sneaky and a little bit more, you know, surprising. Well, maybe now instead, you look to engage really early before the enemy team even expects you. So if let's say the enemy team, you're set up here, and the enemy team is here. It's probably my favorite example. Right over here. The enemy team is coming through here. Now, instead, what you do is you now look to set up some people over here. You set up some people maybe over here. And you also set up some people, I can't really show, but down there. And now what you look to do is they're expecting to probably have the engagement zone normally somewhere over here. However, now what you look to do is you look to actually engage over here, which is way past where they would normally think you're going to engage. And because maybe you set up your Tracer, let's say your Tracer's over here, you put your Lucio Ana over here, you put maybe your Winston up here, or maybe over here, and you get your Soldier in some other angle, you're able to come in from multiple angles and engage on them really early. And also, if you're really sneaky, what you could also do, instead of putting a Tracer there, maybe you set up your Ana here and your Lucio, and then you look for a really early anti that could be a team anti, and then from there you're able to dive and kill everybody. This is critical because this is, again, sort of understanding how kill boxes work and how it goes in line with setting up. And as well as, like I said earlier, when you're trying to push the cart, you only want one person because the rest of the people need to be setting up like this. So for the last point I want to talk about is understanding and more so thinking ahead. I think you've hopefully noticed in a lot of matches if you watch Overwatch League and obviously support Atlanta Reign, it's a lot about understanding what's happening around, I'd say, the 2-minute mark. When you're at the 2-minute mark, you sort of, if you're pushing the cart, and let's say the enemy team has to push all the way back, if you win multiple fights, like let's say you win here, and now the cart's over here, and they have 2 minutes, well, in this situation, they're going to have at least 2-3 fights, so you need to think a little bit ahead ult economy-wise. Oh, they have 6 ultimates? Okay, that's fine. Well, there's 6 ultimates here. What I'm going to look to do is I'm going to let them use their ultimates here. Maybe over here, like the next fight probably over here, I'm going to let them use their ultimates a little bit. And over here, this situation, they've hopefully used all their ultimates, and now I'm going to have ult advantage, so I'm going to win this fight. So being a little bit smart with ult economy and understanding that, hey, you know, we've already pushed it super far. Just for the enemy team to win, they're going to have 3 fights or 2 fights. They've got 1:30, 2 minutes left. Let's be a little smart. Let's maybe use 1 ult, force them to use 3 ults. Let's make it so that last fight we have a massive ult advantage, and then we can win that last fight. And a perfect example of this is this clip right over here. If you notice in this example right here, you'll actually see that the first fight, Atlanta loses on purpose. However, on the second fight right over here, you'll actually notice that the enemy team, they have to win here. But Atlanta's got grabs, dragons, and a few other ultimates, and because of this, they end up winning.
And the dragon, they've been getting so much value from it so far. They only need this one team fight to close out this match. They step off the payload and it's all over, but Hawk is so close to this Graviton surge. He's got it. Bob runs straight past him, but he runs to the back line. Kilo's in a lot of trouble. Someone's got to save him. The dragons are going to help finish him off. A 4v5 and a beat for the Atlanta Reign. They now need to just focus down Collusion, stop him getting value from these bubbles. Nero finds a headshot to find it, and this could just be it. They're going to deny shock the reverse sweep. Goodbye, Finn. Gets sent over the edge of the map. It's up to Popper, but it's not going to happen. He finds 2 kills, but Hawk is just way too strong. The Atlanta Reign deny shock the reverse sweep. They take push and take the series 3-1.
I hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to like and subscribe.